The leadership aspect of it, being the guy as opposed to being, Mitch Trubisky's backup, which he was this time last year, obviously has to have an effect, and it sounds like he's embraced that, and that's all incredibly encouraging, as is the way he's throwing the ball. This is a Steelers passing game with nowhere to go but up from last season. They threw 12 touchdown passes last season. That, I believe, I'm pretty sure was the worst in the league. If not, I can't imagine who was. So I think there's room for improvement, and there's reason to believe in the improvement. The Steelers feel like they've built him a better offensive line than they've had there in a while. It's just to base it all off preseason performance, I believe, is always a mistake.
Of course.
We need to see it in real games against real starting defenses before we know for sure. This is an offense that hasn't been able to get off the ground the last couple of years. Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator, embattled in Pittsburgh, the target of fans' ire very often. But 2 years ago, it was, Ben Roethlisberger has nothing left. Last year, it was Trubisky, and then Pickett's a rookie. So this is the year. Like, if they need to do something on offense, and specifically in the passing game, to show that they're on the right track, and it's encouraging.
Well, look, there's things. My old buddy Mark Schlereth used to say to me all the time on Mike and Mike, in preseason, these games don't count, but they matter.
Sure.
There are things you see that matter. Pickett and Pickens matter. Najee Harris is a terrific player. They have other weapons on the outside. The tight end is as good as just about anybody, and if the offensive line gets better, this is a team that I think is going to get off to a very fast start.
This team is going to be the dark horse team when it comes to playoff contenders in the AFC, and I believe that they're going to be hell the entire season, and it starts with the confidence they have now in their young second-year quarterback.
Yeah, I will say that's exactly. Kenny Pickett is 25 years old. He's starting his second season, but he's 25 years old. And so, look, Danny, if there's one thing we know, it's that the NFL is the most unpredictable of all of the major sports. There are always things that happen that we do not see coming. So maybe in this case, RC and I are saying we see it coming. I think the Steelers are going to be the surprise team in the AFC.
Yeah, I think they're a factor. And then when you look, these organizations that are well run and well operated and well coached are always going to be a factor. Even last year, the Steelers were not a lot of fun for teams to play down the stretch, even though they weren't going to make the playoffs themselves. So, yeah, I think it's that we've talked about that AFC North. It's a mean, nasty-looking division. We don't know what the Browns are going to be, but there certainly is some upside there, right? If Deshaun Watson gets back to what he used to be. So that could be all four teams could be, contenders to win it or certainly make the playoffs.
Well, our buddy Kmart has been on record. She's making the prediction over and over again. She thinks all four teams are going to make it from that division for the first time since they went to the new format. We'll see if she's got it right.
This is an interesting situation because the first thought when they grant him permission to seek a trade is, yes, they're doing that. They're trying to prove to him, hey, that deal you want's not out there. But they may be wrong because there's enough interest here to indicate that there's a possibility he gets traded. I think that the relationship between him and the Colts is in a terrible place right now, and if he ends up back in Indianapolis, that's probably bad for everyone. So that's a factor. There's also been a lot of interest. Remember, this is a 24-year-old running back, not a 28-year-old running back like Dalvin Cook or Austin Eckler, who couldn't find what they wanted and ended up, having to take less this offseason. This is a player that teams are interested in at least finding out what's it going to take. Miami has tried. They're continuing to negotiate. We've heard other teams on the periphery at least making calls. I think one of the most interesting possibilities that's out there is the Chicago Bears, right?
Tell me more about that.
Right. Well, they have a quarterback on a rookie contract.
Yeah.
You can maybe afford to pay a running back a little bit more than the market says you should in a case like that. And maybe this is a player that helps make that rookie quarterback better, especially this is a team that's dealing with offensive line issues. So I think he's a more interesting trade candidate than just any old running back would be at this time of year.
Jonathan Taylor to the Chicago Bears would be an absolutely fascinating development. There's a lot I need to know. And Darziano, let's start with this. How much should we be expecting to see Rodgers on the field tomorrow night?
Not a ton. I've talked to some people there. It sounds like what they want to do is get him in for the first drive and assess. And if they see everything they want to see on the first drive in terms of how the operation is, and then I think that could be it. It could be just the one. But if it takes a couple in order for them to be satisfied with whatever it is that they're trying to get out of this, then it would probably be a couple. But at this point, the plan is fluid. You'll see him at least one full drive, and then they'll figure out whether he needs to have a second or a third.
Right, and the explanation for why he's doing it makes a lot of sense to me. I like it. We had Louis Riddick talking about it here, and Robert Saleh talked about it as well when he said, look, we don't want the first time these guys are all on the field together. It's primarily more about everybody else than it is about him to be in the environment that Monday night game is going to be. These young guys have never been on a field with Aaron Rodgers in a game, under lights and all that kind of stuff.
Because the offensive line's not all the way together yet. They just made Mekhi Becton the right tackle this week. Dwayne Brown was just cleared to practice 2 days ago. That offensive line is not going to be whole tomorrow night, or certainly it's not going to look the way they hope it does a couple of weeks from now. So to me, it's pretty simple. If Aaron Rodgers walks off the field tomorrow night and he's not injured, it was a success. And if he does not walk off the field healthy tomorrow night, it was a complete failure and a terrible decision.
Well, if he walks off the field, I've said it before, I'll continue saying it. And there's only one phrase that I have adopted when it comes to tomorrow night. Take me instead. Do not let Aaron get hurt under any circumstances. Very quickly, RC, the new and improved, the Rodgers 2.0, that is going to kill everyone with kindness, and he's not going to be I want to see him wear these offensive linemen out on the sideline if everything doesn't go right. Tom Brady did it all the way to a Super Bowl in Tampa. Brady was yelling at his offensive linemen like crazy left and right. I have no issue with, I know Rodgers is saying, well, I don't think I'm going to snap anymore. I don't mind seeing him snap, RC, if snapping is what's needed.
Well, we also have to think about this. Aaron Rodgers has never been the sort of guy to show that level of emotion on the sideline. We haven't seen Aaron Rodgers throw clipboards or throw the tablet down, seen him cuss out his offensive coordinator, as we saw with Tom Brady and Bill O'Brien back in the day for the New England Patriots. So that's really not his way. But I've been at these practices, Greeny. I've been to the New York Jets 2 separate occasions, and he does get on players, but it's more about direction. It's more about pointing them in the right place or putting them in the right place to allow this team to succeed.
We could see Jarrett Stidham, and now I don't necessarily think it could be week 1. Oh, you don't have Tim Patrick, you don't have Jerry Jeudy, the running game's not going well, Russell Wilson's on the bench, but he will be under scrutiny. Everything that he does will be evaluated, not just for today, but can Russell Wilson be the quarterback or the franchise guy with Sean Payton as the head coach? And every week will be an evaluation of that. Every day will be an interview. And if Russell Wilson doesn't pass, if Russell Wilson isn't playing great, that will be a discussion that we'll have here every Monday morning.
Okay, so let me just push. I understand what you're saying. And I don't disagree, and I think that is a very commonly held belief. Let me just throw this thought at you, though, RC. If I owned that football team, and I had paid the quarterback $250 million, and then just 1 year later, not 5 years later, but 1 year later, after a struggling season, I bring in an offensive guru, I'm expecting him to figure this out. Where's the responsibility on Sean Payton to make it work with Russell? Everyone is telling me Russell's got to make it work. RC, where's the responsibility on Sean Payton to make Russell work?
Hey, first of all, you're talking about this money, Greeny. We are talking about Walmart money. Yeah. And what they don't want to do and what they aren't going to do is be like us when you go to Walmart and there are no lanes open but the self-checkout and you got to wait. That's not what these people want to do. They want to move on sooner than later. And so when you think about Sean Payton and implementing what he wants, not only did they go pay Russell Wilson a lot of money, they paid a lot of money for Sean Payton. They paid a lot of money for his input. They paid a lot of money for his expertise. And what we're seeing in the NFL right now is teams aren't willing to be strapped by money to a player that can't help them progress and win. And so if that decision comes, which is a very difficult decision to come to if you have a Russell Wilson, it's one I don't think will be easy because he's good enough to make it at least great. But if they get to that, they move on. I watched Jarrett Stidham late in the season for the Las Vegas Raiders. He is competent. He's a guy that can possibly get what Sean Payton wants to be done. And if Russell Wilson is not, I believe the conversation is had sooner than later. Is it time to move on forever?
Yes. Sean Payton was not hired by the Denver Broncos to fix Russell Wilson. He was hired by the Denver Broncos to win a Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos. And if Russell Wilson can't help him do that, then they will look at other options. I don't agree that Mike Tannenbaum said first bump in the road. I don't think it's first bump in the road. But if there are too many bumps in the road, I do believe Payton will identify that early on, and I do believe he will not be scared. Listen, think of it this way. If you're Sean Payton, even if things go great with Russell Wilson, you're still imagining being there longer than him.
Right.
So certainly if they go badly, it's not going to be
I understand that, but Dan, it's not. They paid him a ton of money. They traded everything in the world to get him. You're going to give up on a guy that quickly?
So again, if you have last year plus a good chunk of this year as evidence that he might be cooked, then yes. And to RC's point, they got money like we can't even imagine.
I understand that, but the salary cap doesn't change no matter how rich your owner is. Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.